becomes quite clear that it's not humanly possible what Srila Prabhupada had done. Like going to America at the age of 70 without any resources, no money. And then we all can also see how Srila Prabhupada not only inspired devotees, but he also secured the movement. He saw to successfully spread this movement over a long period of time, there's a need of an institution. And that's why one of the first things Prabhupada did when he started to preach in America, set up ISKCON. And I'm sure you all know, like, small little storefront, 26 Second Avenue, where he started. And he is registering the institution. The name of the institution? The International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Small little storefront, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Prior to that, another incident actually showed that Prabhupada had the clear vision what he was going to do. That is, when he met this Jewish gentleman in Central Park, and that person was quite curious to find out who he was. So he came and sat next to Prabhupada, and when they started to speak, that person actually asked him, and Prabhupada told that he just came a few days ago, or a few weeks ago. And then he started to mention that he has temples and he has so many devotees. And that gentleman said, "You said that you just came the other day. How are you saying that there are temples and all farms and gurukuls?" And Prabhupada said, "They are there, only time is separating us. They are all there, but time was separating. And we saw in due course of time they all became manifest." And not only the lawyer who was registering the society, but even the devotees were concerned about, they didn't mind, okay, fine, international, okay, it's okay. But Krishna consciousness, the lawyer said that Krishna consciousness people don't understand. Like, better call it the International Society for God Consciousness. But Prabhupada's response was, no, Krishna consciousness. I have come here to make people understand that Krishna is God. They speak about God, but they do not know who God is. Now I have come here to make them understand that Krishna is that Supreme Personality of God. So we can see that how Srila Prabhupada had the vision and the foresight to secure the movement. And in order to secure the movement for future, Prabhupada knew that he didn't have much time. He already had 2 heart attacks. And so to continue the mission, there is a need for an institution. So he set up ISKCON. And right at the beginning, he created a collective concept of management through the governing body. He didn't want one person to become the head of the institution. The only head of the institution for all time is going to be Srila Prabhupada himself. And that's why he just secured himself, his position as the founder Acharya. And we can see that how profound his his vision was, how clear his perception was. Because he saw in his Guru Maharaj's institution, actually he got the concept, he got that idea from his own spiritual master. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, before leaving the planet, he just suggested that maintain the institution collectively through a governing body. But unfortunately his followers could not really understand that, the need for that. Like one group considered, yes, we need, he said, as a governing body, we should do that. But the other group thought, no, we need, for a spiritual institution, we need a spiritual head. So they appointed a spiritual head, and that was a brilliant personality, extremely brilliant personality. But unfortunately, when he had spiritual difficulty, like the structure collapsed. Anyway, Prabhupada told us emphatically, don't make the same mistake that my godbrothers made after Guru Maharaj's disappearance. He told them to manage the institution collectively, but they appointed an Acarya. Anyway, from that mistake, Prabhupada recognized that the need for an institution which has to be managed and held together with the collective concept of management. Because if there's one person becomes the head, like if that person has spiritual difficulty, then the whole structure will collapse. And maybe for one generation, two generations, maybe we could continue, but it cannot go on forever. But this collective concept is, we are seeing like how ISKCON has been protected, ISKCON has been saved through various calamities due to this collective concept of management. Like, in order to hold the institution together, we need two things. One is the head of the institution, and after him, maintaining the institution through a collective concept of collective management. Because the advantage of collective management is, first of all, when you do things collectively, our strength and ability multiplies. That's one thing. And the second thing is that if someone deviates, no matter how powerful that person may be, but he cannot stand up against 25 or 30 other members in that body of management. No one is powerful enough to stand up against the collective form of. And that's why we are seeing that although ISKCON has gone through various difficulties and crises, but ISKCON is still going strong. There had been difficulties. Prabhupada himself said that after the Acarya leaves the planet, there's bound to be crisis. Those days we used to think that, well, that may have happened in the past, but in ISKCON it won't happen. But then we saw, and an Acarya like Srila Prabhupada left the planet, and how can we think that there won't be any crisis? But we have been able to overcome all those crises because of this management structure that Srila Prabhupada made. His position as the founder Acharya and the collective concept of management through the governing body commission. And incidentally, I also want to say that, well, I'm not speaking about the importance of governing body commission and the need for governing body commission because I'm a governing body commission. Honestly speaking, no, that's not the thing. I'm just speaking from my own perception for the last so many years. There was a time when I was not a governing body commission member. But the thing is that I saw like there had been difficulties in our movement. But at that time we felt that, everything is going to collapse. But then we saw that because of this collective concept, we have been able to overcome those difficulties. And then of course I became a member of the JBC and started to function. And that's why I'm just saying all these things for you all, for the future of ISKCON, for the benefit of ISKCON, because you all are going to be there. Some of you are the leaders of the movement, and you will become the leaders of this movement. The responsibility will be there on your shoulder to continue this movement. And therefore it's very important that you recognize the responsibility that you have and the importance of the structure that Srila Prabhupada created. Like why Prabhupada, you see, one thing used to surprise me those days at times, is to see that Prabhupada was so emphatic about his position, his title as the founder Acharya. In one hand, I would see Srila Prabhupada was so humble. I remember once in Calcutta, there was Prabhupada was in Calcutta, and there was the press was invited. And those reporters came and were questioning Srila Prabhupada. And one reporter very eloquently started to glorify Srila Prabhupada, saying that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spread Krishna consciousness only throughout India, but Srila Prabhupada spread it all over the world. He tried to kind of imply that Prabhupada did something which was greater than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Prabhupada's immediate response was, no, whatever has happened has been done by my Guru Maharaj and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They simply gave me the credit. That is how humble. All the time I saw how Srila Prabhupada would always avoid getting any glorification. But quickly, let me just elaborate that concept also, the incident. You see, this is what I saw in Prabhupada in Calcutta, when he was in Calcutta. Then Prabhupada went to Bhubaneswar, then Prabhupada went to Mayapur. He was in Mayapur till the Gopurniya festival. Then Prabhupada went to Bombay. In Bombay, the big temple was coming up. And one day, Tamal Krishna Maharaj brought the newspaper, Times of India, had a big article on the Juhu temple. The Juhu temple was under construction at that time. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was reading it out to Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't say anything at that time. And then finally, when he finished reading, he asked who gave the interview. So Prabhupada was told. Prabhupada asked him to call him. And when he came, Prabhupada was very, very happy, because Prabhupada's name was not there as the founder Acharya. And that kind of surprised me. Of course, things would happen that would surprise me, but I would shrug it off, thinking that, well, whatever Prabhupada does is perfect. But later on I recognized why it was, because Prabhupada was not caring for his own aggrandizement. Prabhupada was concerned over the future of the movement. His position as a founder Acharya is very, very important in order to secure the movement. Because on the strength, the institution will remain intact. And on that concept, our movement is going to grow. In simple words, I can also point out what it actually means. Generally, in India, the spiritual organizations, the Acarya, the Guru, when he retires, he appoints a successor. And he continues in that ashram, Guru's ashram. Guru's ashram then becomes his ashram. And those who want to initiate, they start their own ashram. So that was the culture. But Prabhupada didn't do that. Prabhupada didn't appoint anybody. Which meant ISKCON forever will remain as Prabhupada's ashram. And everybody in ISKCON will function as a representative of Srila Prabhupada, as a representative of that ashram or that institution. Otherwise, what could happen? Like as I mentioned, like if one person became the head of the institution, and if that person had spiritual difficulty, which is not improbable, we saw already, so many of our leaders had spiritual difficulties. Powerful leaders, I mean, we never even in our remotest dream could ever think that these people will ever fall down and deviate from Krishna consciousness, but that happened. Now, if that happened, and if those persons were the head of the institution, what would have happened? The institution would have been finished. It would have been just as it happened in Gauriya Math. Incidentally, Gauriya Math, like Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave sannyas to 27 devotees. None of them fell down. All these 27 devotees are continuing in the spiritual life as sannyasis. They're giving initiation, they were giving initiation, they had their ashram, but that preaching mission that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur started collapsed. They were continuing, but the mission was, the preaching mission practically stopped. In a little way they were doing it, but there was nothing remarkable. On the other hand, you look at history of ISKCON. Like after Prabhupada's disappearance, so many leaders of ISKCON had spiritual difficulties. But the ISKCON is intact. ISKCON is not only intact, ISKCON is growing with the passing of time. Why? Because the institution remained unaffected in spite of devotees fall down. And the thing is, like, just consider if that collective body was not there, and if a very powerful leader deviated, then what would happen? He would continue. He would continue, like in spite of his fall down, because he has his followings, he has his... But because of this body of devotees in leadership position, no one individual was powerful enough to stand up against them. And therefore they either had to leave or they had to surrender. So these are the things that we have to really consider and see how wonderfully Srila Prabhupada has secured this movement. And we must remember one thing, like generation after generations, like this institution will continue to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And these two concepts will remain intact. Prabhupada's position as the founder Acharya, Prabhupada for all time will remain the founder Acharya of ISKCON. No one will ever eclipse Srila Prabhupada's position. In ISKCON it will never happen. No one individual will become the founder Acharya of ISKCON. It is permanently secured for Srila Prabhupada. And generation after generations, devotees will come and they will take the responsibility of protecting the movement and furthering this movement as the governing body commission. Plus, and another thing that is so important that Prabhupada established, that this actually Prabhupada's wonderful arrangement for the movement to grow unlimitedly. That is, the temple president is the head of the temple. The temple president is the person who is solely responsible for the temple. Then the advantage, then what actually happens, or how Prabhupada actually visualized it. So many devotees can go out, and those who want to open temples, let them open temples. The movement will grow. And on their own responsibility, they'll take up the mission and further it in this way. And anyway, so we are struggling, of course, in various areas. But one thing we are seeing, that at least the institution is safe. And as I was saying, you all are the future of your movement. So secure the movement in this way, recognizing that Srila Prabhupada is the founder, the spiritual head of ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada is the Acarya of ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada is the spiritual master of all the devotees of ISKCON for all time. Once I was speaking about this concept, this topic in London, and one question came up during question answer session, that what if some effulgent personalities come, the effulgent, brilliant personality. The consideration was that will he become equal to Srila Prabhupada, and my answer to that was no. He didn't say whether he'll become equal to, or he actually meant what will happen if such personalities come. And my answer to that was that they all, no matter how brilliant, naturally, in an institution like this, institution like ISKCON, many luminaries will come, many brilliant personalities will come. But they all will function under the authority of Srila Prabhupada. And I give the example, just like in Christianity we find some brilliant luminaries. St. Francis of Assisi, St. Aquinius, but they all are functioning under the authority of Jesus Christ. None of them are eclipsing Jesus, but they're functioning as a representative of Jesus, and that's how it will happen. They all will function as representatives of Srila Prabhupada. And anyway, you wanted me to speak on Srila Prabhupada, and it just spontaneously came up, this topic. So at this point, I'll just invite questions. Let's see. I know many. Yes.
Maharaj, you mentioned the scene being set for Prabhupada to come, and I remember a nice part in your book where you went for a walk with Swami on the Ganga.
Oh yeah.
Nice part. And he said you don't have an idea on how sinful we are, and you said that you thought that Lord Chaitanya had sent personalities all over the world to start the movement like that. Could you elaborate on that thought?
Yeah. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, I very strongly feel that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made all the arrangements. Did everybody hear the question?
No.
Okay, so actually it needs some explanation also. Recently I wrote a book on my days with Srila Prabhupada called The Ocean of Mercy. And in that there was one incident. One afternoon, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and I went for a walk. We were in Rishikesh, and then we went upstream, and then we sat on a boulder next to the Ganges. It was absolutely quiet and very beautiful, serene atmosphere. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj started to appreciate my birth, me being born in India, how fortunate I was. And then I actually pointed out, which I always believed, that these personalities who came to assist Srila Prabhupada those days, they were not ordinary personalities. Just as Srila Prabhupada was sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also sent all these devotees to assist Srila Prabhupada. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made them take birth in different parts of the world so that they could assist Srila Prabhupada. So that is what the question was. And yeah, that was it. Like I very strongly, I'm convinced about that these personalities who came to assist Srila Prabhupada and assisted Srila Prabhupada in such a wonderful way, they were actually personalities sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that also reminds me, once during Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Vyas Puja, Srila Prabhupada was speaking, and Prabhupada actually also mentioned that all these devotees who came to assist him, who came to follow him at that time, and who were assisting him in such a wonderful way, they were sent by his Guru Maharaj. And while speaking like that, Prabhupada actually broke down. Like how merciful his Guru Maharaj was that he sent all these devotees to assist him. So, yeah, that was the thing that I was trying to tell him. Of course, he wouldn't take that.
But didn't he say it was accurate and profound? Because you were a little bit embarrassed and went to explain yourself, and he said,
yeah, right.
To explain,
That's
it's
true,
accurate and profound, he said.
Right. And I was actually telling him at that time that how I was still trying to justify my statement.
Wasn't you only around for about a month then? Like a month or two, you were in the movement then, and he was there for a long time?
No, I was already there for about 6-7 months. Yeah, a few months. I was initiated in Gaur Purnima festival. And by the time I was already included in Srila Prabhupada's team. Prabhupada gave me in our first meeting, Prabhupada actually gave me the responsibility to translate his books into Bengali. And that gave me an easy access to Srila Prabhupada. Then, when we were in Mayapur, one day Prabhupada gave me a stack of Bengali letters and asked me to reply those letters. When I finished that stack, Prabhupada gave me a stack of Hindi letters and he wanted me to answer them. And then one day Prabhupada called Tamal Krishna Maharaj and told him that he was appointing me as Secretary for Indian Affairs. And he asked me to move to the room where that was actually his secretary's room. So that also gave me another incredible good fortune to be with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Share and be with him. And since then, actually, wherever we went, we stayed together in the same room. And yeah, actually, I was already a few months in the movement. And I was actually giving the background of my perception that how, as I just mentioned, what America went through after the Second World War, the youth of America getting disgruntled, and like Krishna actually set the scene perfectly. And then he sent this. And I was speaking, and then I noticed Tamakrishna Maharaj was, intently looking at me. Then I kind of came back to my senses. So I was feeling a little embarrassed, and I just tried to say, well, that's what I heard. I didn't want to just present it that it was my analysis. And then he justified, no, what you're saying is very true. Thank you. Yes, you have a question? Yeah.
Maharaj, today there's a class where Srila Prabhupada compares the position of Dhritarashtra, who's scheming to get the kingdom for his own sons, to one of his god brothers who thought that when Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj left, he thought, I am the co-founder of this institution. Now, because the co-founder left, now I am the head of the institution, forget about all these sannyasis. I probably knew the name, but I forgot who that is.
I know the name, but I don't want to mention it.
Exactly.
Yes, it's true. This person helped Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur a lot. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also gave him special recognition. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was just in an isolated situation in Mayapur, just chanting. But this person went to visit Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and made arrangements to bring him to Calcutta. And that is how actually his preaching mission started. So he felt very indebted to him. And that person was in the government service, not a very high-ranking position. And but he was financially also supporting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur with his limited means. So yes, after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left, this person wanted to become the head, and another group appointed an Acarya. So this is how the split actually took place, and that led to a court case, and the battle is still going on in the court.
Thank you.
Yes.
I got actually two questions, but
Yeah, sure.
you were mentioning about Prabhupada's position as Jesus Christ in Christianity, but now if you see 2000 years down the line, there are in Kerala itself, I heard that there are 44 different sects of Christianity. One sect did never go to other church.
Are you sure it's 44? I thought it's 440.
So that probably it may be so 44 sects, but no one goes to other church. So, but still, because of some their principles or things, people still connected. They believe, someone believed Jesus as the Son of God, someone believed they are God Himself. But is it going to happen same thing in ISKCON, Maharaj? Or?
The possibility of that is not there, I will say. Because Prabhupada gave all his instructions in his books. Right? And whereas, Jesus' instructions are not recorded that way. I mean, New Testament is the statements of the apostles, not Jesus' own statement. Whereas, Prabhupada gave all his instructions in a crystal clear way through his books. Therefore, the chances of deviation is very little, because Prabhupada's books are there. And the second consideration is that Jesus didn't form any institution. The institutionalized Christianity actually started after Constantine. He established the Roman Catholicism. And they were continuing, of course, as you were saying also, the split at that time did take place also. The Roman Catholics considered that Jesus is God. Whereas the Greek Orthodox consider that Jesus is the Son of God. So on that, there was a split between them. But the major split actually came when Martin Luther started his thing, criticizing what was going on in Catholicism. Like you can pay money to buy a ticket to Kingdom of God. So the possibility of such things are not there in ISKCON as long as we can keep the institution together. Therefore, it's very important that we maintain the sanctity of the institution, the purity of the institution. Like if anybody deviates, let him start his own thing, not within ISKCON. And maybe there will be different groups, but the mainstream of Srila Prabhupada's mission will go through. Not only Prabhupada's mission, the mainstream of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission will go through ISKCON. So that's why I'm saying you all have the responsibility. When we won't be, for how long we are going to be there? We won't be there. You all have the you all will have the responsibility to hold the institution together. And what's your second question?
Second question is now Prabhupada appeared more than 100 years ago. Now in this time we have seen a lot of deterioration happening, and now also Prabhupada mentioned that this movement is going to be for 10,000 years. So is someone else like Prabhupada or Prabhupada himself might appear in future, something like that, or some Acarya, special Acarya will be?
I mean, why should you worry about that? Prabhupada came, and that's good. Isn't that good enough? Why does Prabhupada have to come again? Why trouble him? Come to this terrible place. So let us take the responsibility to keep the movement clean. And therefore, we should be very. And actually, what Prabhupada gave is very simple. Chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regulative principles, and mold your life according to his teachings. So if we just follow these 3 things, there won't be any problem in our spiritual life. Won't be any room for deviation. The deviation starts, or the possibility of deviation will be there only when you break the 4 regulative principles. If we maintain the 4 regulative principles, there cannot be any possibility of deviation. Yes.
Maharaj, this might be another why worry about that question, but I was just curious about your experience with Anandamaya Ma. And you know these personalities like Nim Karol Babaji, their followers feel like he's an incarnation of Hanuman, and she not only accurately predicted that you had a different mission, but she didn't try to cheat you as well.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can explain now your realizations on that.
You see, those days I was searching. I was going to different places, staying in different ashrams. And I'll tell you my first experience. I landed in Delhi and straight away I went to Haridwar, as I mentioned there. Then from Haridwar I went to Rishikesh. I was thinking that, like when I go there I'll find my guru. Because India is full of gurus. And those days I didn't know, how bogus most of them were. And when I went to Rishikesh, it was very disappointing. Because I was seeing that they all were smoke. All they do from morning till night is smoke, not even ganja, charas, hashish. And and I was thinking this is not spiritual life. I mean, this is what my friends used to do. So, but still, those experiences were quite nice. Like, as I mentioned about that American couple, that was a beautiful experience actually. And I met some nice people also. I won't say that, like all were like that. But, they couldn't give me something that I was really looking for. And I myself didn't know what I was looking for, but, it seemed that this is not what I actually, this is not what's going to satisfy me completely. And I found something in that ashram because the Sarupananda Swami, he was actually one of the main persons of our institution. And she was a beautiful personality actually, very nice, but at the same time, even with her, I was not really that impressed. But this person actually, I found a kind of, nice, patronage from him. Like he was nice to me. He was caring. So, and since he was wanting so much that I joined, that I thought, okay, I will. But then she rejected me. and at that time, to tell you frankly, at that time, I was a little devastated. Because, here I wanted to, join. And she said that I didn't, I thought it was a polite way of saying that, well, no, I don't want to accept him. That's how I felt at that time. So she's just giving some sweet words, of consolation. But later on, today I can see that she was honest. She saw, and I could, from her, you could see that she had some power. She was
There's recordings of her actually chanting the Maha Mantra and singing like Jai Bhagavan and that sort of thing. And that's why I'm asking, like, who is such a personality that
Who?
Her, Anandamaya Ma. There's recordings of her chanting the Maha Mantra and singing Jai Bhagavan and that sort of thing. So I was just curious as to who you feel such a personality is that accurately predicted that you have a different mission. She knew that your mission was higher somehow, I think.
The way I see it, she saw that I was not cut out for that group. That's the way I felt later on. She felt that, I didn't really belong to their group. So she let me go. And something that she predicted was, at that time I also didn't take it so seriously. Anyway.
What did you predict?
She said that when he told Sarupananda that when he takes to this path, the whole world will come under his feet. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. Yes, hello.
Thank you very much. Maharaj, you mentioned that Srila Prabhupada is a spiritual master for all the devotees in ISKCON for everyone. So how should we see our relationship with our spiritual master, and what is the importance of initiation in ISKCON?
You see, there are two things, Diksha and Shiksha. Diksha is like admission to the Sampradaya. And Shiksha is the accepting the teachings of the Sampradaya. Now, you see, initiation will take place like, yes, the devotees need to be sort of linked to the disciplic succession. Newcomers need to be linked to a disciplic succession, and then also need personal relationship. And that way, both Diksha Gurus and Shiksha Gurus will be helping. But the preeminent Shiksha Guru for all time, for all devotees of ISKCON will be Srila Prabhupada. Because ISKCON is established on Srila Prabhupada's teachings. Srila Prabhupada's books are the basis. It is on the basis of the books we impart the Shiksha. So this is how, as I mentioned, like the Gurus in ISKCON will function as Prabhupada's representatives. And their the Guru's responsibilities, both Diksha and Shiksha Gurus, will be to take their followers to Srila Prabhupada. So that is how, generation after generation, the custom will continue, the spiritual process will continue. But one unique factor will be Srila Prabhupada's position. Because we are functioning within the institution, so the structure of the institution we have to honor, we have to follow. Like as I was saying, that when we become gurus in ISKCON, we shouldn't think that now I got a chunk of ISKCON as my own. No. We should always remain the servants of Srila Prabhupada in ISKCON, assisting his mission. And in simple words I can say, as I mentioned earlier, ISKCON is Srila Prabhupada's ashram. ISKCON will always remain Srila Prabhupada's property. And we should always function as the humble servants of Srila Prabhupada, serving his institution, serving his ashram, taking care of his assets. And the assets are not only the properties, but the assets are the devotees of ISKCON who are joining. They will always remain Srila Prabhupada's assets. And we should function as caretakers. Yes.
Mark, please, my question has got to do with the meaning of the word Acarya. I believe obviously the GBC makes so many rules and regulations. I believe there was a GBC rule that no one can assume the title Prabhupada. Is that correct? Yes.
Yes.
And what about the title Acharya?
Acharya is Guru. Guru and Acharya is the same. So that can be. But the founder Acharya will always be Srila Prabhupada. There can be miniature Acharyas, many miniature Acharyas, but the founder Acharya of ISKCON will always be Srila Prabhupada, and no one will be able to assume that title. It's very important also for this title Prabhupada. The title Prabhupada actually means the personality at whose feet many other Prabhus sit. So many Prabhus will come, many Acharyas will come, but they all will sit at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet and function. Yes?
We see in a yatra like Brisbane and few other places as well, we have many different disciples and also disciples of so many other gurus as well. And sometimes we come across some instructions maybe from the spiritual master which might differ from the local management. So how do we deal with those parallel lines of authority?
Let this be sorted out by the local leaders. No, I'm serious about it. Because they have to function together. We are functioning in the same institution, the same objective. So there shouldn't be any conflict. if there is any conflict, if there is any misunderstanding, we should try to sort it out among ourselves. Because unity is very important. Yes.
ISKCON as a spiritual institution, most of the people who have been managing the institutions so far are people who had a lot to do with Prabhupada or at his time, and they've done that well. And whereas the most of whom we are coming through now are from a later time, we understand the things, but also some people feel that we need to take into account the current situation and therefore use modern techniques or other things in order to grow the institution in that manner. How do we...
That will happen, and we should be open to that. Like many things that Prabhupada did was unheard of in the past. Right? Similarly, in future, like say for example, Prabhupada never used a computer. But today everyone is, all the leaders of ISKCON are using computers. So things like that, whatever is going to facilitate and enhance our preaching, our mission, yes, we'll accept that. But, the essence should not be compromised. That is, like recognizing Krishna's position and our position in relation to that, our position in relation to Srila Prabhupada. So there cannot possibly any deviation, or it cannot be allowed. But using modern techniques and all, like I'm noticing that the youngsters, they are so, so smart, so computer savvy. So let them use those talents and spread Krishna consciousness. Does it answer your question?
Yes, and also there's also the other side of it is people who are, for example, people who have been in positions of being a consultant or manager or other things otherwise, and when they see what's happening within ISKCON, they want to reflect those within ISKCON and how that's because of that this.
Yeah, good point actually, very good point. Because in course of our like day-to-day experience, we are seeing that sometimes someone comes from a corporate background and he introduces certain things which other devotees cannot accept. They feel it's a deviation. They feel that this institution should not be kind of managed the way a karmi organization is managed. And which is true. Like our basis of our operation should be love and trust. Like on that basis we should not try to control them, but inspire them. That's the difference. In the material management you try to control and get things done. Whereas in the spiritual platform you try to inspire them so that they go out of their way to do things for Krishna. So these are the challenges that we are facing actually. And also that reminds me, one such corporate personality actually joined the movement. He was a big person in a big accounting firm and Harvard graduate. And he came in and everyone thought it was a big achievement, such a big person joined the movement. And he was naturally a very talented person. And he, he tried to centralize everything. Because it's true, when you centralize, it is easy to manage. But when Prabhupada got to know that, Prabhupada totally dismissed that idea. He said, if you do that, then the devotees will they lose their inspiration. They won't function properly in life. And Prabhupada said, don't try to control. And from that time, we got an understanding that in ISKCON there should be centralization. Individuals' inspiration should be the motive for our involvement. Anyway, these challenges are there. But as I said, another thing that comes to my mind in that respect is simple living, high thinking. As long as we maintain that. Maybe there are many, modern technology and other things will be utilized, but, they should not complicate our lifestyle. Have a lot of nice prasadam, that's all right. Yes.
Didn't Prabhupada also mention with that person, with Janaka Rishi, he mentioned that there's a difference between a material organisation and a volunteer organisation, and it has to be based on love.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Prabhupada pointed that out actually. The Karma organisation, they can function like that because they're paying them. Whereas we are not paying the devotees, they are rendering voluntary service. So, that spirit must be enhanced, not stifled.